Well, Canada has committed $9.6 million towards African swine fever prevention. Lindsay Smith with Real Ag Radio joins us now with the latest. Lindsay, first of all, thank you so much for being here and taking the time to break this down for us. From what we understand, there really hasn't been any cases of ASF reported in Canada. Is that correct?
Well, absolutely correct, and that's actually part of the point of this $9.6 million worth of funding is we want to keep it that way. And of course, I'm sure our friends in America want to do the same. So African swine fever was found in China and in parts of Eastern Europe in 2018. So it's been found in several different jurisdictions. It's an incredibly devastating disease of hogs and one that can persist in the environment and even on pork products after an animal is butchered. And so this is one of those diseases we do not want on North American soil in any way, shape, or form. And that's what this funding, or at least part of these funding dollars, is going to be dedicated towards.
So give us a little insight. We were talking about $9.6 million for this program. How will this work to protect against this disease? What do they plan to do here?
Right. So there are 29 different projects that will receive funding through the African Swine Fever Industry Preparedness Program. These are going to be projects spread across several different provinces, the prairie provinces of Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, as well as Ontario and Quebec, Nova Scotia, and even Prince Edward Island. Really, they're going to be focused on research, but biosecurity as well. And of note, wild pig management activities. And this is one of those issues that, for any disease, for a livestock disease, we have to think about animals in the wild that we aren't necessarily in any control of where they go. And so there will be some funding available for wild pig management. We do know that African swine fever does travel through the wild pig population in other countries, and it's actually transmitted through ticks and can, of course, then be spread to the domestic pig population. So getting a handle on the wild pig population is an incredibly important part of prevention should African swine fever ever end up on North American soil.
Well, Lindsay, obviously, ASF poses not only a risk to Canada, of course, to us here in the United States. And maybe you don't know the answer to this question, but I'm just wondering, with all this research being done, are countries sharing information here? Is this something that the United States and Canada can kind of work together on?
Well, absolutely. So I can't speak to everything that happens, but I do know through some of the work we've done here at Real Agriculture that the U.S. especially is quite interested in what Canada is doing on the wild pig problem. As I mentioned, it does have this tie-in with overall animal health and for the hog population. And the wild pig problem in Canada is somewhat different to that in the U.S., where the wild hogs here have adapted to some pretty extreme conditions and are very hardy. And there is a concern from the American side that, these well-adapted northern wild pigs could move south into the U.S. And so we really, unfortunately, hogs don't really pay attention to any border. And so we need to work together across country to be, identifying some of these threats and then potentially, if we can, stopping the spread of these wild pigs. So absolutely, there's a lot of integration that happens between our two countries to make sure that we're taking as many preventative measures as we can for something like African swine fever.
Great stuff. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us. Lindsay Smith with Real Ag Radio. Again, Real Ag Radio update brought to you by Economics. You want to go to nutrient-economics.com for the latest crop nutrition research and information. You want to catch Lindsay, Sean Haney, and the rest of the team on Real Ag Radio, 4:30 p.m. Eastern weekdays, Rural Radio Channel 147. That's on Sirius XM.